Hello, 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 Internet. Today we are going to do a quick crash course video on Swift in an iOS CRUD application. We're going to use a RealmSwift backend to store our data on the phone. I chose Realm over Core Data because it's much simpler to learn, quicker to get off the ground, it's faster. I just think overall that Realm is usually a better option unless you absolutely have to use Core Data. So as you can see here, we have the application. Here's the mock of the application that I've already made. So we have a simple table view that scrolls up and down. So if we were to have a whole bunch, here's one that I've already made. We can edit it. So we can change that from not done to done. We can add a new one. So let's say edit video. It's not done at all. And let's say that we wanted to delete our done application. We swipe it to the left and click delete. Done. So as you can see, it's a very simple application, but it really gets there's a lot of meat in it. There's a lot of things that build off this simple CRUD application. If you don't know what a CRUD application is, it's a simple create, update, delete application. A lot of things build off of CRUD applications, so this is a good foundation to start on. So we're going to get right into it. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to open up a terminal of any kind. So to manage our dependencies, I'm going to use something called Cocoapods. Cocoapods is basically a framework manager to keep track of all of the frameworks and dependencies you've got installed. So to use it and install it, you're going to need Ruby. Ruby ships with all OS, Mac OSs. So as you can see here, I have Ruby version. If you don't have Ruby version, you need to install Ruby. I don't know how you don't have it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do sudo gem install Cocoapods. I've already got it installed, but I think it'll let me reinstall it anyway. So Cocoapods is nice because it allows you to keep track of all these, and you don't have to drag them in yourself. You don't have to worry about anything. All you do is make something called a pod file, and it handles all of it for you. So as you can see, the gem is now installed, so we are good to go. We're going to open up Xcode now. We're going to start a new Xcode project. It'll be a single view application. It is going to be called the best project ever because you're worth it. Create. And we are good to go. So with Cocoapods, you want to do it right in the beginning. So as you can see now, I have the best project ever. So what we need to make now is a pod file. So we're going to do vim pod file. I'm going to use Vim. You can use any text editor here. You can use Xcode if you'd like, but Vim is easy just because it's simple text editing here. So we're going to do something. It's going to do use frameworks. That's something that you put at the top because Realm needs it, and Cocoapods usually put them at the top of your pod files. So we're going to do. So basically, what you need to do is this is a specific type of file. So all you're going to need to do is do target, the name of your application. So for us, it's the best project ever. Do pod, the name of the pod. So we're installing RealmSwift. There is a Realm Objective-C component, but we don't want that because Objective-C is horrible. So now we have RealmSwift, and this is going to be the version number. As I'm doing this video, it is 2.9. That's also going to be wrapped in single quotes. So we do end. So now that's it. This is your simple pod file. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do pod install. Ooh, I've made a typo somewhere. Where have I made a typo? Oh, I'm sorry. So I put an extra quote there. All right, now we should be able to do pod install. Ah, look at that. Perfect. Now that we have our, look at that. Completely done. Been installed. The dependency, it's installed. Nothing to worry about. We didn't have to drag it in. We didn't have to worry about any of the framework stuff. No linking ourselves. Done. But whenever you do this, you're going to have to open up the new XC workspace. I'm going to close out Xcode, reopen Xcode, open another project. It'll be in the same folder, XC workspace. So we're going to open the new XC workspace. And bam, good to go. So now that we've got this good to go, our pod's installed, What I'm going to do is I'm going to run to make sure that everything's compiling correctly. It's going to take a second to compile. So I'll edit this out and we will come back whenever it's done. As you can see, it is build succeeded. And we should see our application come up soon. Look at that. Perfect. All the way up. Good to go. So now that we have that done, we're going to actually get started. First, I'm going to create the UI. I'm going to use a storyboard. Storyboards are what Apple recommends to build UIs with. It's a good starting point. It's easier than building UIs in code. People don't like building UIs in storyboards, but that's a topic for a different day. So we're going to open our main storyboard. I said as Xcode is probably going to crash. Oh, look at that. It didn't crash. So we have our view controller. Now we're going to embed it in a navigation controller. Everything should be, you should always embed your navigation or your views in navigation controllers. But you only need to do the first one. So we're going to do editor, embed in, navigation controller. Done. So that gives you the push pop, the back button, the back button, like the add buttons, the stack that you use to handle the life cycle of your application. So basically, as you saw in our application earlier, we had a simple table view. So that's what we're going to hook up first. So that way we can start building out our application. So we're going to need a table view. We're going to drag it into the top left portion. Then we are going to add constraints. Constraints allow you to deal with different size devices. If you make it 100 pixels high, it's going to look different between an iPad Pro, iPad, and an iPhone. So what this will allow us to do is it allows us to build UIs without having to worry about the differences between the devices. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a constraint down here in this button, and we want our table view to be at the top, left, right, and bottom, and you want to have no space between all of them. You want to take up the whole thing. So we're going to do 0, 0, 0, 0. You can tell they're activated by the red anchor thing here. So add all 4 constraints. There we go. Now every table view needs a buddy. Every table view needs a table view cell. So now that we have a prototype cell, this cell is huge. I like how it's messed up. Again. Well, it's not messed up, but it looks really funky. But this is our table cell. I don't know why it's messing up here, but I'm not worried about it. So we have our table cell here. Every table cell needs a custom identifier because how are you going to refer to just table cell? It is its own specific table cell. So we're going to call it ToDo table cell. Perfect. Now we can reuse this table cell whenever we would like. So to mimic our thing from earlier, we just need a label over here and a label over here. So we're just going to drag a label in on the left side, put it in there, drag a label on the right side, and put it in there. Now the problem with just doing this is what happens when it gets longer than this? It's just going to do ... or it's just going to go off the edge of the view. So what we want to do is we want to set a maximum width so that it can only get so big. Now, whenever you deal with different width devices like iPads and stuff like that, what happens is, or what if you turn it over, you turn your phone over. What happens is that this will only go so far if I make it a static width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a percentage width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor it at zeros to the top, left, and the bottom, all to zeros. And then I'm going to control click, drag into the content view, equal widths. Now it's going to make that the whole width. But we want ours to just be a little bit above that, or a little bit below half. So I'm going to do 0.45%. The reason I do 45% is because in the middle, if this one's at 45% and this, or 50 and this is at 50, they'll meet in the middle and it'll look kind of awkward. So we'll have a good difference between the two. So look at that. So now whenever you make it super big, it'll just do ... We can also make our font a little smaller. But even if we make our font smaller, we have a problem there. But we can make more lines. Look at that. So we can do 2 or 3 lines. There's some extra font stuff you can do, but we'll worry about that another day. So we're going to do the same to this, but we're going to do it on the right side. So 0, 0, 0. Awesome. So we're going to want this one to be right justified. We're going to do that now, so that way it doesn't pop over to the left in a minute. So we're going to do the same thing we did with the other one. Control, drag, content view, equal widths. We see the new constraint. Click. Multiplier, 0.45. Done. So we can make this label also different, also long. It's also, we want it to be the same font size. I think it was 11 and 3 rows. 2 or 3. 11 and 3 rows. Perfect. We want this one to be left lined. Left lined. So now we have two opposing labels. Perfect. So now we're going to need our edit. So our edit's going to be simple. It is just going to be a box to put it in, and then is it done? So I have a handy dandy view controller over here already somehow. Shh, it's like magic. So now that I have a view controller, if you don't have a view controller over there automatically, like I magically did, you can just see here, view controller, type in view controller, drag it in. Perfect. Now we got to delete this view controller. Okay, now we're good to go. So now that we have this view controller, we're going to want our text view, or our field. Text field? Perfect. We're going to want it to be centered, but we're going to do it with constraints now because we don't want it to just be on the phone just somewhere random to magically hope it ends up on the right side. So we're going to use we're going to use constraints. So we're going to do constraints. So we want ours to be from the top. We want it to be about 100 pixels, right? That's good, right? So we're also going to want the left and the right to be 0. Perfect. Look at that. So why is it screaming at us? The view controller is unreachable. We're not going to worry about that right now. We're going to hook it up in just a second. So we have placeholder text in the attributes inspector. So our placeholder text is going to be insert to do text. Perfect. So now we also need a label. We're going to center this both horizontally and vertically. Actually, we're going to swing our switch horizontally and vertically. So we're going to put this right above the middle, and then we're going to do a switch. And we're going to center this both horizontally and vertically. Now see, this doesn't actually horizontal or set anything horizontal, just for the iPhone that you have selected. So I have an iPhone 7. So if I were to pull this up on an iPhone 7, it would be centered. But if I pull it up on an iPhone SE, iPhone 5, iPad, iPad Pro, anything like that, it's going to be wrong. So what we're going to do is we're going to center it horizontally and vertically. So we click this alignment constraints, and we're going to horizontally container and vertically 0, 0. Perfect. It is dead center all the time. So this label needs to be close to this switch. So what we're going to do is we're just actually going to make it a specific height away from the switch. So we're going to control, click, drag onto the switch, let go. And we are going to do vertical spacing. Vertical spacing says, I'm going to be blank amount of pixels away from this object on the view. So we're what? We are 24. We're going to do 25. Ooh, not 225. We're going to do 25 for a good solid number, because if you don't do solid numbers, you're horrible. So our label is going to say, have you done it? Ooh, that looks weird. So we've only dealt with the vertical spacing, or the spacing between the button and the label. So we actually also want to center it horizontally. Look at that. Perfect. So now that we've centered it horizontally, it's always going to be dead in the middle. So have you done it? Look at that. It looks perfect. So now we need a way to get to this view controller. So what we're going to use is most iPhone apps has something up here. These are called bar button items. So this is bar button item. So this bar button item, we're going to put it up here. Now this item, you can edit the text just like any normal button. But see, if you put a plus, it just doesn't look right. It's not big. It's not obvious. So Apple has actually very nicely given us some automatic system icon texts. So you're going to click the bar button. You're going to click up here where it says system item. You click custom and make it add. So you have a good plus button. It looks good. So now what you're going to do is you're going to do Control, click on the plus button, drag over to your new view controller and hit show. So whenever you click this button, this will show up. Let's watch it in action. So now it's attached. We have our table view. Ooh, not notifications. We have our table view and we have our plus. Look at that. Perfect. Well, this shouldn't be automatically done. You usually don't make it to do and expect it to already be done. Wouldn't that be a beautiful world to live in? But that's not how the real world works. So we're going to click on our switch and our default value is going to be off. Perfect. So now that we have that done, we need to make a view controller for this view. So this uses the MVC pattern. If you don't know much about the MVC pattern, there are plenty of videos to learn the MVC pattern. Basically, every view is going to need a controller that decides what it's going to do, unless all it does is display static data. So for us, it's not just static data. We're going to need to pull in whenever it's edited and stuff like that. We need this action to actually do things. So we're going to make a new item, new file, sorry, Cocoa Touch class. We're going to just call it the insert view controller and create. Perfect. So now we actually need to attach it to this view controller. They don't know each other exist quite yet. They haven't been acquainted. So we're going to go here. We're going to go to the class, this inspector, identity inspector, and we are going to attach it to the insert view controller. So this binds the insert view controller class to our actual view. So now they know each other exist. They've been well acquainted and they are ready to converse with each other and tell each other what to do. So now that we have this insert view controller, I think we're ready to start getting into code because this is all the UI we need. It's good to have it all ready and out of the way. Now, what you're going to say is you're going to say, but what about the edit screen? We can actually utilize the view controller we have here with the edit screen. We'll do that very, very soon. So we now have our view controller, but what we need now, first we need to make sure that our view controller is hooked up. Just to, look at that. Perfect. Because I was messing around a little earlier on an accident, I accidentally must have gotten rid of this view controller. Usually it comes baked in, but I had to make sure to add that class. So now we have a table view, but our table view doesn't do anything yet. It doesn't have any cells, doesn't render any cells, doesn't have any data. So what you have to do when you put a table view in your regular view controller is you got to go to that view controller and you need to inherit from UI table view delegate and UI table view data source. Now what this does is it basically is just the way that you deal with UI table views inside your application. So now you can see that it's throwing a big hissy fit about me not conforming to the protocol of data source and also delegate. So what you need to do is since this is inheritance, if you don't know much about object-oriented programming, I also suggest you go look that stuff up because it's a little outside the scope of this. But basically, this interface says we have to have these methods or throw an error. So that's what it's done. So the errors is we need cell for row at. So cell for row at, that basically tells me how many cells I'm going to need. So for us, it's going to be however many cells we've saved Realm to. So we are going to go back to hack the NSA because no one knows about this application except you guys. So we have this. So we only want to render one. If we make another one, make it done, we want to render two. So we want to render as many as we have in our database. Sorry, cell for row at is not the one I'm talking about. But we are going to need that one. So it's going to be table view. It's going to be number of rows in section. That's the one that I was just talking about. I apologize. So cell for row at, actually, all it does is it returns the actual table view or the table view cell. So for now, we're just going to return a default table view cell, and we will create our own later. So now we have our table view cell. Sorry, just to reiterate, cell for row at returns the actual cell. Number of rows in section returns the number that we were trying to return. So the number of rows in our database. This returns the cell. This returns how many cells. So now that we have this, we're returning one cell with a UI table view cell. So now that we've got this out of the way, we actually need to attach our actual table view to our controller. They don't know each other exist yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our view controller again, click these two circles up here. If yours doesn't come up automatically, you can go to manual and then find the application you're looking for. And then we're going to click the table view, control drag into our view controller, and we're going to name it ToDo table view. Oh, poet didn't even know it. So we've made it an outlet. So we don't need to do any actions on it. We just need to have a reference to it. So what this reference is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to set up, so we can close this now so we have a little more screen real estate to work with. So what we can do now is we're going to say ToDo table view dot data source is equal to self. ToDo, can't type, dot delegate is equal to self. What this is since we have implemented these two interfaces, we have the ability to set our data source and delegate to our table view to ourselves. So we say, we know how to handle you. Make your data source now delegate to me, and I'll tell you what to do. So now that we've done that, we can actually start dealing with our table views in our table view cells. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our own table view cell. So what we're going to do is we're going to do class. We're going to make all this in our simple view controller here. So we're going to do class. What do we need to name it? ToDo cell. And now it needs to extend UI table view cell. Ooh. Perfect. So now that it extends to UI table view cell, it needs to have the labels on it. And we also need to make sure that our table view cell is that table view cell. So we're going to go to ToDo table cell, class of ToDo cell. Perfect. We're actually going to make our identifier the same thing, so that way we don't have to remember two different names. ToDo cell. Perfect. So now that we've done that, what we can do is we can click on our cell, open up our two little arrow thingies. Automatic. Perfect. So now that we've done that, we need to find our table view cell because it has vanished into the night. Perfect. Thank you, Apple, for sending it to the middle of nowhere. So now we need to attach our labels because we're going to be editing our labels on the fly depending on what it is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drag our cells and we're going to hook our cells up into our table view cell. So we're going to control, click, drag, make it an outlet, ToDo text. Perfect. We've got ToDo text. And now we have our is done text. Perfect. So now we have those hooked up because those are going to be rendered on the fly. So we're going to close this now. So instead of returning a UI table view cell, we're going to want to return a ToDo cell. Now instead of just returning a brand new cell, Swift actually or iOS built into the operating system has a way with dealing with cells. So whenever you pull any cell, any number of cells onto a simulator or onto a table view, it actually doesn't render every single cell at once. That would be kind of useless. So if I have 10,000 cells, it doesn't render all 10,000 because only 10 or so are on the screen at once. So it reuses these cells as is necessary. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually implement the way that they want us to. So var cell is equal to table view dot dequeue reusable cell for string. So what we named it ToDo cell for index path, and we see that we have index path in there. So we're going to want to do it as our type of cell, ToDo cell. Now you can do, if you don't know the syntax, you should probably go read more videos about Swift syntax, but we can do question mark means it will return nil if it fails. Exclamation point means that we will do it no matter what, and our code will crash if it fails. For right now, I'm going to leave it as an exclamation point just because it's a little easier to work with. And I know for a fact this is not going to fail because it's going to dequeue a reusable cell, and this is a UI table view cell. This is not best practices, but that's not for the sake of this video. So what we're going to do is we're going to do cell dot. We have our is done text and our to do text. So we're going to do text is equal to here is my text. Here is my other text. Return cell. No errors. We should do let on this variable because we don't actually we don't redo the variable. We don't make it something else. We only modify the properties of the variable. So now we're going to run our build because we should get one table view cell that has our, look at that. Here's my text. Here's my other text. And you can see we have this awkward space at the top. So let's go look and see why this actually is happening. Adjust scroll view inserts, my nemesis. So sometimes adjust scroll view inserts will give you problems. I tend to turn it off, but I did not this time. So there's our issue. So just to turn, if you're getting that problem, just adjust scroll view inserts, turn that off, and bam, you're good to go. We'll rerun it just to double check and make sure. I did catch that earlier, but I thought that it was just Xcode being Xcode. Look at that. Perfect. So it hovers whenever it's clicked, but that's fine. We're not worried about that right now. So look at that. We got it perfectly. So now we're going to get into some fun stuff. We're going to get into Realm. So we have Realm since we installed it with our pods. We installed it with Cocoapods, so we can just import RealmSwift. So what we need to do, if you've ever messed with code-first databases or code-first, ways of dealing with databases, Realm is very similar. What you do is you create an object, and then Realm will understand how to how to deal with that object. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new class. We're going to call it ToDo object. Yeah, that's not naming that. It's just going to call it ToDo because it's going to inherit from object. So this object right here is a specific RealmSwift thing. Basically, everything that inherits from object is a Realm object that can be saved or pulled from a Realm database. So what we got now is, what we need now is our properties. So we're just going to have a label, which is a string, and a Boolean of yes or no. It's done. Now we are doing text, but we just want a Boolean to say it's done or it's not done, because a to-do object can't be in a different state than done or not done. Much like Yoda says, you are done or not done, right? Something like that. So what we have is we need a dynamic var to do text is equal to string. Perfect. Wait. I learned. I don't know how to spell. So now that we have dynamic var to do text, we just need to do dynamic var is done is equal to false, because you shouldn't be making it to do if it starts out true. So now that we have our to do object, we can save to it. It's that simple. All we have to do is make the object and we are ready to go. So we're not going to do the saving in here. We're going to get our objects together in this method here. So what we're going to do is we're going to need actually an overall variable that is going to have results in it. So we're going to do var to do's. It is a results of to do. So what I'm saying here is there's something called a results object. A results object is the realm list, basically. It's a realm list that says these are all the realm objects I have. We're going to say it's of the to-do type. The reason we have the exclamation point here is that if you don't put the exclamation point, Swift is going to yell at you and say, declaration needs an initializer to get a, you can't have a global variable like this without initializing it first. I'm doing this to tell Swift, I'm going to initialize it, I swear. And if I don't, blow up. So I'm going to initialize it up here. So to-dos. So now we're going to actually get to see our first Realm syntax. We're going to need another variable up here, var realm is equal to try realm. So again, we're using a lot of exclamation points here, but this is not about best coding practices. So what this does is this actually just gets our connection to Realm. Realm works right out of the box. You don't have to do anything. So what our to-dos is equal to realm dot objects of type to-do dot self. Sorry, typo. So this gets us all of our to-dos. We're done. We don't even have to worry about it. Now, one thing we are going to have to do is we're going to have to reload the table view. Why are we going to have to do that? Because the table view doesn't know to update itself to say, here, I know that I have objects in this array. I need to show them on the screen. It doesn't know how to do that every time. So we're going to do func reload. We're going to say to do table view dot reload data. Simple as that. Now, you would think, you're going to say, why do we not have to, every time the table view loads, reload the realm objects? Because whenever we come back from adding a realm object, we're going to want to requery all the realm objects, right? Wrong, actually. One really cool thing about realm is that realm always has access to all those objects. So since it has access to all those objects at any given point, I never have to re-update my to-dos. So after I've done to-dos here, and I never need to set to-dos ever again because it'll automatically update from adds, deletes, and edits without me ever having to re-query the to-dos. So we set it up here, set it and forget it basically. So now we have our reload. We're going to do our reload up here. Now we're also going to need to do a reload view will appear. Now the reason we have to do this is because whenever we come back from whenever we go to edit, we want it to reload again. We're just doing a little future proofing right now, so we don't have to worry about that in a little bit. So just a little housekeeping there. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to our insert view controller and we're going to save this data. So now that we're on our insert view controller, we're going to delete all the comments that we don't want. We're going to go back to our storyboard because we got to hook up our text field and our switch. So we're going to click on this view controller. We're going to click on the two circles, automatic. It oh so graciously scrolled us to the bottom again. So we're going to control click drag to do text field. Control click drag to do switch. Perfect. So we can now close this, go back to this. Beautiful. Now that we have this, we also need a button to save. So a lot of people put save buttons down here and they just put them in random spots. The real place you should put a save button is a bar button item. Should be up here. That's where it belongs. Now again, you can make it save like this, but again, we have a beautiful save thing up here automatically. I do it this way just to keep it all consistent. All the saves will look the same. It's built into the OS. Just let Apple take care of whatever Apple wants to take care of. They have very clean APIs. They have very clean UIs. Just use whatever you have available so you don't have to redo it every time. So we are also going to want to hook this button up. So we're going to do this again. Control click, let go. Now this one is going to be an action. So we are going to do save button action. Perfect. So that way it's going to do something whenever I click save. So now what I've got, I can close this, go back to insert view controller. So on save button action, what am I going to want to do? I'm going to want to get the text field and the to-do switch and insert an object, right? Perfect. That's not hard at all. So I'm going to say var to-do is equal to a to-do. Actually, we're going to do let, because that's what you should do. Swift will cry. To-do dot to-do text is equal to do text field dot text exclamation point. You shouldn't do this, but it's outside the scope of this video. So to-do switch dot is on. Perfect. Look at that. So now that we have our to-do, we're going to need Realm. So we're going to import RealmSwift. And then we're going to need a connection to Realm. So let Realm equal to try Realm. So Realm handles the connections by itself. So you don't have to you can and you will most likely need to pass a configuration objects, but it'll use default configs anytime you just do let Realm equal to try Realm. So this connection and this connection are the same connection. They connect to the same database, which is good for us because we only want to handle one. So all Realm transactions, like reads don't. Any Realm write transactions need to be dealt with in a realm.write. So after realm.write, we can do realm.add to do. Why are we getting issues? You have to. So again, you probably shouldn't do this. You should catch it and say, if this fails, they don't have permissions, Realm has gone problems. But for the scope of this video, we are just going to exclamation point it, and if Realm goes bad, we're just going to poop out. So after that, we're going to want to go back to where we were. So we're going to do navigation controller, because we are a navigation controller, because our parent was a navigation controller. Dot pop view controller animated true. And that should be it. We should now be able to insert data and be done. That basically was no time at all to get a good, simple create up and going. So actually, we're rendering our here as my text. So this should work. It shouldn't give us any errors. But we're not rendering it back on our actual display view controller. So we're going to delete this comment. And then we're going to stop doing it statically and start doing it dynamically. So we, instead of returning that cell, or instead of returning that text, we're going to get let to do equal to realm. Now, the cool thing about realm result objects is that they can use the array syntax. So we can just do index path dot row. And since we're using index path and we're not using a 2D array, you just use index path dot sub row, and we're all good to go. So now that we have our to do, we're just going to do not realm. I apologize. So now that we've got our to do object set up, we can just do to do dot to do text, and we'll do here to do dot is done, and we'll return our cell. And instead of just returning one cell, oh, hold on just a second. Okay, so we don't want to actually just put the string of true false in there. We want to say, is it done? Display this text, otherwise display this text. So this is a ternary operator. It says, if is done, do this, else do this. So it's basically an if statement just on one line. It's a lot cleaner to deal with whenever you're doing simple things like assignments. So if is done, we're saying it is done. Otherwise, I'm going to say, do it. Just do it. All right, perfect. So we're going to want to actually just return the length of to-dos, to-dos.count. Ooh, to-dos. Perfect. So now we should be able to run our application and see our updates coming in. Or we should see the one we created earlier. Look at that. Perfect. We should be able to start, have one done, save, it is done. do it. Look at that. We already have create done. So we're about to see how simple delete is. Delete is super duper simple. I love the way that Swift and iOS deal with deletes. So what we're going to do is we're going to just do an editing style. It's on table view itself. And after you do delete, all we have to do is do a realm.delete. So what we're going to do is we're going to do commit. Oh, it was right there. Commit editing style. Perfect. So what this is going to allow us to do is just do a simple delete. So this works on a simple, basically what comes in. So we have an editing style that comes in. So what this will allow us to do is it will allow us to make just say, if this editing style is of type delete, if editing style is equal to dot delete. So delete is an enum that's just built in, and this is the enum syntax for Swift. So we're going to do try. So anytime we delete from realm, we need to wrap it in a realm.write. So we're going to do realm.delete. What do we want to delete? We want to delete the to-do sub index path.row. And it's done. We're going to need to reload, but after that, we're done. Oh, not to-do, to-dos. We have multiple of them. So now our delete portion should be up and going. The only thing now we're going to have to deal with is edit. Should be no problems. So now that we have these, delete, delete, delete. Perfect. Look at that. So simple. So now that we have that done, we need to deal with edit. Edit is also very, very simple. So in an insert view controller, we're going to say we have a to-do. So we're going to do let incoming to-do. It's going to be of type to-do. Now it's going to be of type nil. It's going to be nillable. Why? What we're going to say is, since we're reusing this same view, we're going to come in and we're going to say, we're going to send in a to-do if we're editing. If we click on it and we edit it, we're going to send in a to-do. So we're going to say, if this to-do is nil, we're creating a new to-do. If the to-do is not nil, we're editing a to-do. So what we need to do is we need to fill out this and this, the text field and the switch. And then what we're also going to need to do is we're going to need to update as opposed to write. So what we're going to do then is we're going to also need to tap into a segue. So what a segue says, I'm going here, what do I need to do? So we're going to control click on a cell, and we're going to go over to this view controller, and we're going to do show, just like we did before with the button. But for this one, we're going to make sure, yes, that we want to make sure it's not from the button. It's not this one, it's this one. We're going to need to put an identifier in the segue so we can tap into it and make sure that we're in the right spot, or make sure that we have the ability to attach our to-do as we go along. So we're going to say cell click. We're just going to call the identifier cell click. So that way we know that when we click this cell, we go over here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into our regular view controller. We're going to use a function that Swift gives us with override, func prepare for segue. So if our segues identifier, not sequence, identifier. So we just named our finder equal to, what do we name it? We named it call click. We'll copy that so that way we don't make any typos. Cell click. We're not assigning it. We are making sure it is equal to. So we're going to do let destination. So our destination is going to be the view controller that we're going to. So we can get the we can get the destination from the segue itself. Again, we're using exclamation points. We probably shouldn't be. So now we're going to get our to-dos. sub. So the question here is, how do we know which one we clicked? We don't see, there is no method. So we only have the segue and the sender. So we don't really know what just got clicked. Also, I don't know why I'm trying to make an array out of that. So we don't know which one we just clicked, but actually we can get that from our to-do table view. Dot index path for row, selected row. Dot row. Perfect. We have our to-do. So we're going to do, not to, this is to be to-dos. And now we're going to add our destination dot to-do, or incoming to-do is equal to do. Perfect. So now we have sent our to-do into our insert view controller. So now we're going to have to be dealing with the fact that this can be nil, otherwise we need to do something else. So let to-do equal to to-do. So actually, we need to make sure that we're not overwriting anything, and we need to make sure that we're doing the correct action depending on the state. So if incoming to do, actually we'll use the good syntax. If let good to do equal to incoming to do else. So what this says, it says, aha, that's what I thought. I was confused. So what this says is if incoming to do is nil, go to else. Otherwise, set it equal to good to do, and it's not possible to be nil. So what we can do is we can say try realm.write. So what we're going to do here is we're not going to add anything. We're just going to update our object. So we're going to do good to do dot is done is equal to do switch dot is on good to do dot to do text is equal to, much like down here, perfect. So after that, we're going to say else. Let's do this. Just move this up. Some of the formatting handle it for us. And honestly, that should be it. Let's give it a shot and make sure we don't have any errors. Oh, we do have errors. Again, probably shouldn't do that. We have another error. Let's open this view controller completely. Interesting. So our problem is that in our insert view controller, we say let. We don't allow it to be updated. So we need to make sure it's var. We're going to go back, and this error should fix itself. Perfect. Now we can get it going. So now that we have this, we're ready to go. Actually, it seems we have forgotten to put in the edit initial value. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So we want to say if let good to do is equal to incoming to do text field. So we've just set the good to do text to the text field, and then we will also want to set the to do switch dot is on equal to good to do dot is done. Now we should be done with the project. So what we just did is we said if it's not nil, that means it's coming as an edit. If it's coming as an edit, I want to pre-fill these values. Clicked. Here's my text. Have you done it? Do it. So let's say we've now done it. It is done. Do it. It is done. So this is a simple application, but many applications are built on a CRUD interface. So this can really be very beneficial first starting out. So what we've learned here is how to set up a simple table view, how to use a little bit of auto layout, and how to use constraints to make sure it looks correct on all devices. We can actually get a good look at that here. So we're going to open it with an iPhone SE. So we know the iPhone SE is much smaller than the iPhone 7 Plus. Sorry, my iPhone SE is very small here. But what we can do, or what this allows us to do, is to build big UIs for all of the iPhone types and iPad types, so we don't have to deal with the fact that they're bigger or smaller. So as you can see here, everything looks the same. It's just a little bit smaller. Perfect. So we messed with a little bit of auto layout, a little bit of constraints. We used a Realm backend to save our to-dos into a database on our phone. We are allowed to create, update, and delete objects on the table view. So realistically, this is no different than any blog posting. You know, a blog post obviously wouldn't use a table view, but a blog post is nothing more than creating a post. People create comments, they edit comments, they delete comments, you create posts, you update posts, you delete posts. So realistically, you have now the tools to build quite a powerful application if you so desire. I hope you enjoyed it, and I do plan on doing more videos in the future, either with some web application stuff or with iOS stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.